All right, let's talk about one of the most nerve-wracking, score-defining shots in all of golf, the 2-meter putt. You know the one. It's for birdie or maybe to save par, and you're standing over it thinking, this should be simple. But as we're about to find out, there's a whole lot of fascinating science that goes into getting it right. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about why this putt is such a huge deal. Then, we're going to get into the gap between simple theory and what actually happens out there on the green. After that, I'll introduce you to the Puttalyze correction, unpack the two big ideas behind it, aim and pace, and then we'll finish up with a pro-level drill so you can make all this work for your own game. Okay, so let's jump right in. The make or break putt. And look, I'm not just being dramatic here. This distance, it really is what separates a great round from just a good one. Just think about your own game for a minute. How many times have you faced a putt from around, 6.5 feet and just walked away totally frustrated? It happens all the time, and it's because we totally underestimate just how complex this little shot can be. The experts, they call these putts the low-hanging fruit of scoring. And why is that? Well, because getting good at this one specific distance is one of the absolute fastest and most direct ways to slash strokes off your handicap. Making these consistently, that's what turns bogeys into pars and pars into birdies. Simple as that. Now, to really dig into this, we have to get super specific. So for the rest of this explainer, we're going to focus on one single scenario. A 2-meter putt on a really fast green. We're talking a stimp 11. The green has a 2% slope, and our putt cuts across that slope at a 30-degree angle to the fall line, which is just the steepest path down the hill. This is a situation you'll find yourself in all the time out on the course. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter, this battle between pure, clean theory and, well, messy reality. You'd think you could just crunch the numbers and figure out the perfect putt, but as you're about to see, it's not quite that easy. I mean, it makes sense, right? Your first instinct might be to solve this with geometry. There's even a formula for it. You take the slope, the angle, the distance, and it's supposed to calculate the break in inches. It seems perfectly logical. It's just pure math. So you plug in the numbers from our scenario, and bam, you get an answer. The math tells you to aim 2.25 balls out. That's 2.25 ball widths outside the hole. On paper, that should be the perfect aim point. But the real world has some other ideas. And this, my friends, is where things get really, really interesting. This is where the Puttalyze correction comes in. It's where we stop relying on that perfect, idealized math and start looking at what real-world data and physics actually tell us is happening. Okay, just look at this comparison. It's night and day. The geometric theory told us to aim 2.25 balls out, but the data-driven Puttalyze reality, it says the correct aim is just 1.08 balls out. That is a massive difference. We're talking more than double. If you aimed where that simple math told you to, you would miss this putt every single time. So what gives? Why is that simple theory so wrong? Well, it's because it's incomplete. A simple formula just ignores all the real-world stuff that Puttalyze accounts for. Things like rolling resistance, the precise green speed, the pace you hit the ball with, and all those tiny little inconsistencies on the green surface. All right, so we get why there's a correction. Now let's break down the two core principles that make this whole Puttalyze system work so well: aim and pace. And trust me, they're two sides of the very same coin. First up, we've got the aim point. Think of this as the what. It's the exact spot you need to start the ball rolling to account for the true physics-based break. So for our 2-meter putt, that target is precisely 1.08 ball widths to the high side of the hole. Not 2.25, just a little over 1. But hey, aim means nothing without its partner, the distance point. This is the how. This is all about the speed of the putt, and it's defined by how far the ball should roll past the hole if it misses. For our putt, the perfect pace is going to send that ball 27 centimeters or about 10.5 inches past the cup. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds kind of backwards, right? For years, a lot of us were probably taught to just trickle the ball up to the hole. So why is hitting it with enough pace to go past the hole actually better? Well, the physics here are pretty brutal for slow putts. As a putt starts to die, a couple of things happen. First, the effective size of the hole literally shrinks. The ball has to enter perfectly to fall in. And second, a slow ball gets knocked around more by tiny bumps and breaks, and it's way more likely to catch the high side of the lip and spin out. A confident, firm pace helps you beat both of those problems. Okay, this is all fantastic, but how do you actually use it? How do we take this from a cool idea to something you can do on the practice green?
Let's get into our last section and talk about how you can train like a pro. Check this out. It's a super simple, structured drill called the one ball, one spot drill. First, you set up our exact 2-meter putt. Then, you physically mark your aim point at 1.08 balls out and your distance point 27 centimeters past the hole. Then, and this is key, you use only one ball because that simulates real pressure. Your only goal is to roll that one ball right over the aim point with a speed that would get it to the distance point.
And that target speed we're after? We're talking about 3 to 4 revolutions per second, or RPS. That specific speed is the sweet spot. It creates this perfect balance where the effective size of the hole stays as big as possible, upping your chances of it dropping, but it also makes sure that if you do happen to miss, you're not left with some scary long putt coming back. And hey, if you want a little help with this, there's a tool for it. The Puttalyze app actually lets you plug in all these variables, the slope, the stimp, the angle, and it'll show you the correct line visually. It's an amazing feedback tool for training your eyes to see the real break and start trusting the data. All right, let's put it all together. This slide really is the whole story in one place. You've got a 2-meter putt on a fast 2% slope. The goal isn't just make it. The goal is to roll it at 3 to 4 revolutions per second, over an aim point that's 1.08 balls out, with a pace that would finish 27 centimeters past the cup. That is what precision putting looks like. So I'll leave you with this one final question to think about. The next time you're standing over one of those crucial putts, ask yourself, are you really reading the green and accounting for the physics? Or are you just guessing and hoping for the best? Because the data is pretty clear. There's a much better way.